Hello and welcome to Emma Reads Reddit. Today I'm reading from r/AskReddit, where user Poopcorn Kernels asked, "Have you ever witnessed someone completely snap? What happened?" I had a co-worker get up from her desk, throw her keyboard against the wall and go sit in the corner and start bawling uncontrollably. The reason? All of the data in her payroll program had been deleted. What actually happened is that she opened the wrong program. Everything was just fine in the correct program. My dad was in traffic once. He saw a car break down. The guy, wearing a business suit, casually got out of the car, opened the trunk and got an aluminium baseball bat. He then proceeded to beat the living shit out of the car, windows, lights, the whole works. Once he had finished, he fished out his briefcase from the now ruined car, ripped off the license plate from the car, then casually, calmly walked to work. We think. I worked at a Mexican grill years ago. The older, quiet dude who always kept to himself but was basically pleasant just lost it one day. He was chopping chicken to put on the line when one of the line employees called out, 86 chicken! The guy loses it. I'm already fucking making chicken! He throws the chopping knife sideways at the wall and the tip of it sticks. He pulls it out and throws it again towards the line, narrowly missing the employee. The knife lands in the barbacoa, splattering juices all over. Then he calmly took off his gloves and apron and left. My boss once cut all of her hair off in the bathroom at a works Christmas party. Sitting at the airport in Las Vegas, heading home at one of the restaurants, this lady took her plate of breakfast and threw it at this guy's face across the table. Hit him right square in the face, and then she stormed off to the gate, which was like 50 feet away. Guy cleans himself off like nothing happened, walked over to her and she just dropped his boarding pass on the ground. Don't know what caused this, but it was pretty entertaining. I used to occasionally visit my parents' friend who lived in Vermont during the summer. Key phrase there being used to. The summer of my 16th or 15th birthday, my cousin from Austria was visiting my dad because his mother thought it would be good for him to go see the world and his family that lives in America. Cool. We all took a road trip to the mountains of Vermont and were having a pretty fine time until dinner one evening. After we had finished eating, my dad and his friends were chatting around a table outside, while my cousin and I were sitting next to a little fire that was prepared so we could all stay warm. Mind you, the husband of the couple we were staying with set up this fire about 5 foot from a massive wood pile he had stocked there for winter, like a moron. My cousin and I were getting cold, so we added a couple of logs onto the fire and were sitting happily chatting in broken English and animated gesticulations when out of fucking nowhere, this long ponytailed fucking hippie, my dad's friend, charges up to us and unleashes holy hell. He's screaming at the top of his lungs about how dangerous the fire is and calling us morons for adding wood to it. Only gear shift was to stop yelling about what we did and start asking us rhetorical questions like, would you like it if I just set fire to your car or burned all of your shit down? Needless to say, my cousin and I were fucking stunned. We had no idea why he suddenly blew up at us all. Later that evening, after my dad took his turn losing his shit at his now ex-friend for screaming at us all like that. Once the shitstorm had subsided, my dad took the time to explain to us that when his two friends were very young, they had apparently hosted a party in their parents' house while they were out of town and accidentally burned it to the ground. At university, approaching exam time, a girl in the library snapped under the pressure, picks up a chair, pretty heavy, slams it on the desk several times, shouts, "I just don't have an outlet for my emotions!" and bursts into tears. Back when I was in secondary school, we had this Thai exchange student. He's this small, scrawny kid that didn't speak too great English, and being from a different country and all, pretty much kept to himself. I decided to befriend him, and we got along pretty well as you could when you can't really communicate too well. Enter the douchebag. Douchebag was about 2 years older than us and pretty much a bully. He also loved to pick on said Thai boy because he was different and because douchebag thought he was the shit. Anyway, douchebag would pick on Thai boy and send him home with scrapes and bruises. Typical bully behaviour. One day though, douchebag and his posse confronts me and Thai boy as we are leaving the school, challenges Thai boy to a fight and got his posse to basically beat the crap out of me. Thai boy is being pushed around by douchebag and basically being pounded on. Thai boy is visibly distraught and keeps going, "No fight, no fight." Then douchebag spits in his face. Now we see karmic justice in all its beauty. Thai boy's face completely changes. He grabs douchebag by the shoulders, pins him to the chain link fence with his body and proceeds to knee and kick the living shit out of him. Douchebag can be seen trying to escape, but Thai boy seems to have more strength than his small frame suggests. Douchebag finally collapses, clutching his abdomen and literally pleading for Thai boy to stop. Never bothered Thai boy again. When I asked Thai boy why he would wait so long to fight back, Thai boy said something like, Back in Thailand, I fight every day. I Muay Thai from 4-year-old. Pain is nothing, but he spit on my face. Face important. Spit on face unforgivable. I was in line at the grocery store and the woman in front of me was obviously unnerved. She was on the verge of tears and shaking slightly. When it was her turn to check out, the clerk put her first item in a plastic bag and the woman snapped. She began screaming, "Those bags kill cats! Those bags kill cats!" It's a big store, maybe 20 checkout lines, and the whole place turned to look. The woman then went to the front of the store, still yelling about cats, and began pulling 5-gallon water bottles out of the racks. It lasted until several people calmed her down. She sat on the floor and had her head down, weeping when I left the store. High school. This kid was overweight and just fit the nerd persona. He had greasy hair, he hung out with other kids at breakfast lunch and discussed anime and video games in the early 2000s. He fixed people's computers for fun, played chess after school if he wasn't helping the librarians run the library. But a lot of bad jokes from people. He took it pretty stoically until someone, one day, slapped him while insulting him. It was like watching every bad thing this poor kid had ever endured come pouring out of the floodgates. He let out a loud, wordless scream and flung himself onto the other guy. Being that the other guy was a few inches shorter and half his weight, it was given that they were going down. Then the fat kid just began kneeing the other one in the groin while slamming his head into the floor. Teachers had to come and pull him off the other kid, then it took 3 of them to restrain him because he just kept trying to jump back on the bully. He got suspended for a week, other kid got 2 weeks for starting it. When he came back, it was pretty rare for someone to outright insult him after that. He was just smiles and laughter with his friends though. On my school bus, this new kid from the first year of secondary school used to be a right dick. He would piss off the older students such as myself, squirt water on people. He even screamed in this girl's ear for a good minute. It was childish arrogance. But Lord above was it annoying, and he had been doing it for a good 4 months. Everyone used to tell him to just bugger off. I used to sit next to this girl who recently left, and this little shit rips out her earphones from her phone and laughs at her from the main aisle of the bus. This girl was one of the most polite, calm and quiet person I have ever known. She turned towards the kid and full on kicked him in the stomach, winding him. The bus went silent. She then gets up and crouches down, then really quietly whispers in his ear, "You annoy me on this bus again and I will rip your balls off." Then she sits down, plugs in her Bastille and acts as if nothing happened. The kid has kept silent since. She isn't even here anymore. I sort of feel sorry for him. Sort of. Guy who worked in the office at her council retired and his colleagues hired a local pub for his farewell party. One of his joke gifts was a lollipop man's children crossing sign. In the UK, this used to be a job traditionally done by retired people. Unfortunately, this guy was a bit drunk and didn't like the joke. He totally flipped out and started swinging the thing around like a mace, sending drinks flying and forcing people to take cover. He was eventually restrained and escorted out of the pub. Party over. My dad, he's normally pretty laid back and I rarely ever saw him snap. 15-year-old me. Half day at school and so I come home earlier than usual. Dad had a day off, so he was at home cooking a late lunch. I don't exactly remember what the conversation was about, but something I said must have ticked him off. Mid-conversation, he threw a sizzling hot frying pan at me, the one he was frying eggs in just seconds ago. Luckily, it narrowly missed. As I stood in shock, he yelled, "You better clean that shit up!" and stormed off into his room. He came into the kitchen after I cleaned up everything. He apologised for scaring me, said he just had a rough day and will never happen again. True to his words, that was the only time my dad ever snapped. My dad has always had a temper of sorts, but it was never a real problem. He would fix cars, things around the house, all while cussing up a storm. Classic dad. One time, I was in middle school and my family was on vacation. We decided to go to Burger King and head to the drive-thru. This particular BK wasn't in a great part of town we were in. When we pulled around the back to the drive-thru menu, we saw about 8 employees having a smoke break. We order and pull ahead slightly. I'm not exaggerating when I say we sat in line at the drive-thru for 40 minutes, my dad growing increasingly frustrated until he finally started punching the steering wheel and rocking the car violently. My mum started yelling at him. We were all embarrassed, and needless to say, I was not hungry after that. Nice guy Brian, works at Best Buy, always helping people out and doing returns when they're out of return period, no receipt, etc. Lady comes in asking for return. Okay, just need receipt. Lady doesn't have it. Well, we can look it up on the card you used. Lady says she'd paid cash. Okay, I can give you store credit for the current price. Lady demands cash for the original price. She berates him and verbally abuses him for 20 minutes. Lady causes a scene and manager comes over. What's going on, nice guy Brian? Lady cuts in and proceeds to tell manager that Brian swore at her, won't do a return, is racist, is incompetent, etc. Nice guy Brian loses his shit, rips off headset and throws it, exclaims, "Fuck this shit! This bitch doesn't understand that I'm helping her out and doing way more than she deserves." Nice guy Brian ain't nice anymore. Takes off his Best Buy shirt and throws it on the ground, throws his hands up in the air and says he quits, knocks some stuff on the counter including the items she brought in, walks out of the building. Management knew he was the nicest dude and the lady was just dumb. They told him he wasn't going to be punished at all but to take a few days off. Brian's next scheduled shift he doesn't show up, nor does he show up for the next 3. Never see nice guy Brian ever again. My dad would always complain if I left my shoes by the front door because our front hallway is small. I like shoes, so I had about 10 pairs of Nikes, Adidas, etc. at the time. Well, one day he was vacuuming and I think 3 pairs of my shoes were by the front door. I came home that day to every single pair of shoes I had in the front yard. My neighbour was outside mowing the lawn at the time and told me he heard yelling and saw shoes flying out of our front door. I didn't witness it personally, but I wish I had. I'm a software engineer and one day at work I heard a woman a few offices down just go, "Fuck this! No, fuck this!" and then stormed out, grabbed the box, went back in her office, swept all her shit off her desk into it and just walked out. No one heard from her again. I went in to look at her computer and it was on the regularly scheduled Windows login, change your password prompt. And the thing was, there was no error message, which means it's not like she attempted a password and it didn't like it. No, it was just time to change her password and the idea of that was just too much for her, I guess. We work in tech, we change our passwords regularly and she'd been at our company like 8 years. This wasn't something new. I snapped once when I was a kid. Dad sent me out to a donation place because we had a lot of stuff to donate. This location was maybe a 15-minute walk away from our house. My mission was simple, to get there and get a phone number so we can call them to pick up all our stuff. Easy enough. Except he asked me to do this when it was pouring out. I grabbed my umbrella and head out. This was during summer. I walked 3 blocks and I'm mostly soaked already. My umbrella had one of the arms break so it was flapping around and not being too effective. I was waiting for a crosswalk light to change when the absurdness of the situation hit me full on. Why the hell couldn't this wait one more day for when it was not raining? Why did my umbrella break? Why am I waiting forever for this crosswalk sign? And I just snapped and went wild on the umbrella. I pulverised the fucking thing against the pavement. I bent and broke every bone in its metal body. There was a woman next to me also waiting for the crosswalk sign. She looked shocked and frightened. After I was done destroying my umbrella, I tossed the pieces on the ground and calmly walked away. I now know why umbrellas lay around willy-nilly after a rainy day. People go nuts and destroy them. I was once witness to snapping. I was having the absolute worst week. My roommate and I got in a huge fight. I had missed some work due to illness and gotten stern talking to, and then my dad had a heart attack and was in the ICU. I had just gotten the news and left work to the dismay of my boss to go to him. I was bussing and I was walking briskly to the bus stop. I see my bus just as it starts to pull away from the stop. I ran after it, yelling at it to stop. But of course it didn't. I lost it. I threw my coffee thermos forcefully at the ground while yelling, started bawling my eyes out and jumped up and down in frustration a few times before crumpling on the sidewalk to cry. Eventually it all worked out. The next bus came, I got to my dad and he's doing fine now. I moved away from the shitty roommate and eventually the shitty job. The week after this happened, however, I went into one of my favourite lunch spots for a sandwich. The girl behind the counter, who'd always been friendly and talkative before, was treating me really strangely. Then she happened to mention that she saw me on the sidewalk the other day. Oh, she thinks I'm insane now. Okay, I can understand that. I was never able to stop her treating me with kid gloves after that. I worked at my first car dealership for almost a year. The first few months were great, and I was making good money coming in first or second on the board constantly. One of my managers who once supported me, however, decided he would start continuing to motivate me by cussing me out if I didn't sell anything that day, or even docking my pay if I took my designated days off. I dealt with this abuse for months until one day I was sitting at my desk with a customer and he called me to his office. I went in there and he cussed me out for taking too long on my deal and some other bullshit. So I immediately and finally exploded with, "Working for you fucking sucks, you're a fucking piece of shit, I'm out." I went back to my desk to get my belongings, told my customer I had to leave for personal reasons and never saw that place again. It seriously felt so good. Fuck the car business, no matter how good you do it, these people will still treat you like shit and find every excuse not to pay you. Just today, my supervisor for a research project at university using drones needed to update the firmware of the drone, and for some reason it wasn't updating. After attempting the install process a few more times and progressively getting more angry and swearing with each failure, he proceeded to smash his keyboard with his fist, punch a hole in the door and damage a 5,000 drone by swiping it off the desk. I was sitting a few metres away and after hearing the commotion, came over and spotted the USB cable plugged into the wrong port. Supervisor started crying. The dude is super stressed out and I kinda feel sorry for him. My friend, real nice guy and is usually calm, brought a stress ball and showed me it. Months later I saw his stress ball and it was all burnt, shredded and had bite marks. When I was about 12, my mother and I shared a bathroom. I, as a 12-year-old child, would leave my stuff lying in the bathroom. Toothbrush not in holder, towels occasionally on the ground or hung up messily. Typical kid stuff. One day, my mother looked at the towel on the ground and lost her shit. She pulled the full roll of toilet paper off the holder, threw it in the toilet, and proceeded to flush it 3 times. This eventually had to be solved by a plumber. She emptied the trash can on the floor, threw all the towels in the bathtub, and proceeded to turn on all the faucets, including the shower head which soaked the towels. She then knocked everything off the countertops and turned to 12-year-old me, who stood in the doorway, dumbfounded, and said, "See how it feels to clean up someone else's shit every day." And I did. So moral of the story, if you're a grown-ass married woman, share a bathroom with your husband and not with your child. No love. The moral of the story here is clean up your shit. Have you ever been to a friend's house when they didn't do the chores their mothers told them to do? I saw my dad snap recently this past year. He was moving houses. Before he put the house on the market, he'd wanted to replace a few things in the house to up the value, so he starts with the dishwasher. I'm sitting downstairs in the basement below the kitchen when I hear my dad screaming for me to come upstairs. I run up and I see the entire kitchen is flooded with water. I quickly grab towels and try to mop up the mess, but more and more hot water keeps coming out of the pipe he unscrewed from under the dishwasher. Halfway through the dilemma, he just sits there in a puddle of water, fully clothed with a pipe in his hand, still spewing hot water everywhere, and he was just laughing. He got so hysterical, he eventually ended up just streaming the water at the window for fun, I guess. He eventually fixed the leak. He calls the repairman now. My second grade teacher was this really old, soft-spoken, sweet lady. This girl in my class said she didn't have the homework for the 5th time that week. My teacher coldly told her to take out some paper and work along with us since she didn't have it done. And the girl says, "No, I can't find any paper either." So my teacher grabbed her desk and flipped it over so everything fell out, and then pointed at the paper on the floor. I was playing Monopoly with my family. My aunt was taking a little too long to count our money, and as the 12-year-old smart arse that I was, made a little joke about how it was simple math, haha. Suddenly she's yelling about how much of a rude piece of shit I am, and I mean really yelling, red face with budging eyes. No one was really down to play after that. I've snapped. Only way I can describe the feeling is just that. In the moment, I did not care about a single thing. I found my boyfriend had cheated on me and kept denying it to my face, which set me off. He took off walking on the other side of the road, and I decided it would be a good idea to try and run him over. Thank goodness he's quick and had good reflexes. When I was about 13 years old in a class, the teacher walked up to some guy on the other side of the classroom, and I don't know what she said, but he literally table flipped as he got up while shouting, "I don't have autism, you whore!" And he ran out of class. He nearly got suspended for that, but he's alright now. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed what you heard, please like, subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss anything from Emma Reads Reddit.